Hello, everyone, and welcome to State of the Realm. With Dawntrail out, we've got a lot of shows that need doing, and of course, we got to talk about the story. It's been quite the topic over the past couple of weeks, and I just myself actually finished watching the cutscenes yesterday, so it's very fresh in my mind. But let's just get started. I'm one of your hosts, Mrhappy. Of course, joining me is Sly. How you doing, Sly?
I'm here. I'm crafting.
He's crafting in the middle of the show. Sly, is that an allegory for how you feel about the story, or is that just something you feel like you need to do right now? Sly's just nodding for those of you who can't see him yet.
I mean, certain parts, but okay.
Yeah. All right.
Damn.
And we wanted to bring on a guest. We haven't had a guest on in a few weeks, as I've been trying to keep things under control. Especially last week, we're trying to avoid any accidental spoilers. Need to make sure that we had no guests at all for that. I bring on a first timer. Sly, you met Mike here at FanFest, you said. So why don't you do the introduction?
Yeah. I've known him. How long have we known each other? Jesus Christ, man.
I caught on to you during like height of pandemic in 2020, I think, because you've been doing like the clubbing events, and I was looking for a lot of like social outlets in 14. And then so I went to some of the events you were doing that I follow you on Twitter and follow your streams, and I'm like, this is my guy. And then, we met at FanFest last year, so it's all good, man.
Yeah. So
this is Michael.
What's up, y'all?
I'm also Michael, by the way. So this is
that's your real name.
Excuse me if I run into some issues here. Yeah, I really like to play it because people will be like, why does it sound like you're swallowing your mic? Like if someone's like this, and I'll be like, I didn't say they could do that. And it's a great joke for streaming. It works perfectly every time. Yeah. Fortunately, here I'm happy. Much to Sly's dismay, unfortunately. Yeah. Why don't you give yourself a formal introduction so everyone knows what you do and everything, what your history is?
Okay. Well, I was born in July 15, 1990 in Mississippi, Biloxi, Mississippi.
Hold on.
So,
what bank do you bank at?
I know my account number off the top of my head, so I can give you that if you want, buddy. I'm Michael Higham. I'm an editor. I'm the tech reviews editor at IGN currently. I spent like 6 years at GameSpot and everywhere, and also I was at Fanbyte, RIP, for about 1.5 years. And throughout that time, I was always the guy that everyone will go to cover Final Fantasy 14 because I was the only like editorial person on staff that really played it. Now at IGN, there's a bunch of people who play it, but I've been deep in 14 for quite some time now. I started during Stormblood patch series, leading into Shadowbringers. Because they needed someone to cover the Shadowbringers preview event. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to like speed this up and get through the game to cover Shadowbringers back in 2019. And I stuck with the game ever since. And 14 is quite literally my favorite game of all time. Like, I cannot count how many times I've cried playing this game. Goddamn. And half of them are from patch 5.3. So you know where I'm coming from. But yeah, 14 is a very important game to me. And I played through Dawntrail since early access. I reviewed it on IGN.com, so you can check out my review afterwards if you want. But otherwise, I am excited to talk about this game freely without any caveats. So, and I'm really happy to be here with folks.
I'm happy.
Yeah, you're happy. You're happy.
Walked right into it already.
I'm elated to be here with legends such as Mrhappy and Sly. So, yeah.
Yeah. He's just mad because I'm really sly about sneaking those in.
Oh my god, y'all are annoying.
He said,
"No, he's annoying."
Yeah, I was gonna say, what do you mean, you all? I'm pretty sure there's just one of us at this point. Sly, you're the one who decided to craft during the show. I have to be extra harsh about it now. All right.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. Okay. So that is, speaking of which, talking about it in an unhinged manner, this is Spoilercast, which means we're largely going to be focusing on the story, which means all bets are off. If you haven't finished the story or there's anything you're concerned about spoiler-wise that you haven't done yet, while I myself haven't done all the role quests. I haven't done the Mrhappy quests, and I don't know much about any of the more notable side quests other than the few that are tied to the Ether Currents. Everything's still on the line. It's especially the main story itself. So we can finally unburden ourselves of our knowledge. And for me, it's not a finally because, like I said, I just rolled credits yesterday on my alt. So it's fresh on my mind, at the very least.
Nice.
We have to start on a kind of hot note, though.
Okay.
And it's not going to sound like a hot note, but it is a hot note.
Mm-hmm.
What were your overall thoughts on the story?
Damn. Well, I guess I could go first.
You're the guest.
Yeah,
Go right
you wanna
ahead.
guess?
Yeah. Thank you. Wow. I wrote a lot of words about this, and I'm having trouble articulating it now. I'm of two minds of the story in that I understand. So, Dawntrail is very distinctly cut in two halves. Like you go through the first half is Wook Lamont becoming Dawn Servant, and the journey she goes through to get to that position. And then so throughout that time, I was always interested in what was happening and in the world building, but I wasn't necessarily excited about going through it. It feels like I think back to why Endwalker, Shadowbringers, even Stormblood, Heavensward, like why those beginning parts work so well is because from the jump, you know what you're getting into. Like you're getting into some real shit right off. Especially Shadowbringers. Like, yo, I've never experienced an opening to a game quite like Shadowbringers, where you know what the stakes are, and the first dungeon throws you right into it. Holminster Switch is still like one of my favorite dungeons ever. The thing with Dawntrail is because they're starting a new story arc, I felt like I get a lot of leeway to be like, okay, you want to show me these different cultures, these different zones, because it's completely foreign from anything we've seen in Eorzea. So they need to take that time. But I think that it puts you in a weird position where you're not necessarily doing anything. So the quest design kind of comes into conflict with what it feels like Dawntrail wants to do. And it kind of wants to be a visual novel in a way. And so I don't mind that. But at the same time, I'm of the mind that, hey, I've seen y'all be a little bit more creative in how you tell these stories. And I'm not necessarily seeing it done here in Dawntrail. But there comes a turning point. And I think it's once you kind of get into once you go to Texas, the fourth zone, I think that's when it starts to flip the switch where, Aaronville takes you there and he's like, hey, I just want to go check out my hometown. You want to come with me? And it's like, okay, cool. We're going to go through the motions again, maybe. But that's when the big plot twist comes. That's when Alexandria comes into question. That's when interdimensional time travel comes into question. That's when you start to get the sci-fi cyberpunk stuff. And then so you have like this cowboys versus aliens type aesthetic and concept almost right at the start of the second half of this game. And that's when I was like, oh shit, they're doing something. They're doing something wild. And it's the level 97 dungeon, Vanguard, when I was like, oh shit, this is it. Or even like the end of the 95 dungeon where when you first get to the Golden City Gate, or that's what you think it is at the time. I was like, okay, now we're starting to see what we're working towards. And then once you get there, once you go to Solution 9, once you find out what the truth is about Solution 9 and this Alexandria, it's like, this isn't Final Fantasy 9, this is like Cyberpunk. And then you find out that how those two kind of merge with each other is really fascinating. And I think it's it's nice to have a story that's detached from like Ascians and kind of like this esoteric concept of ether. Because in the past, it's always been like, hey, I don't know, Ascians in ether. That's how the mechanisms work. And
don't forget about
Allegans. Allegans. Can't forget about Allegans. But now it feels like they're taking a step back and showing you a lot of same concepts, but more rooted in like a fresh perspective where it's not magical powers anymore. It's technology and different societies from different realms. And now we're starting to see how we can cross different stars. And that has huge implications. So once those pieces start to fall into place, I was rubbing my hands like Birdman and shit. I was like, yo, let's go. And yeah, from then on, like Wook Lamont is still very much part of that story. And I think that's important that you laid that groundwork in the first half so that she's there. And then once you start to go through like the level 99 dungeon, you start to do this rebellion from within Alexandria, and then all the like the Zeralja stuff starts to come into focus. It hits you with a lot of stuff. And I wish there was an entire expansion just for the second half of the game, because there's so much they could have explored, which they did, and they did really well. But I can't, I'm just like thinking of like what they could have done if, especially that last zone, and we could talk about it later. I don't want to go on for too long right now, but that last zone hit me as much as anything as in this entire game. That last zone, if I wasn't really feeling it up until then, that last zone was all worth it. I absolutely adore what they did with that last zone, what it represents, and the conclusion to Dawntrail. And I think it's one of the peaks of Final Fantasy 14, in my opinion.
You can tell that you do editorial work just in the way you articulate.
Very.
That's
Yeah,
why
like,
I
I
get
can't articulate. I can't articulate this and begins to articulate it perfectly.
My bad.
No, that's good. That's
No,
a
no, no. That's
compliment.
all good. That's great. It's great. We've never had this shit before.
Yeah, we just. I mean, as you can tell from the lack of even a script or a record button. No, we wing it. We're very much. We sit on the couch and have a discussion.
Nice.
Less of a production. That was
good.
very, very professional. And now we're gonna dumb it down and ruin the whole thing. So, Sly, you go first.
Pretty much. Okay. At a cursory glance, just going through everything, it was refreshing in the sense that, you know, this, like, especially the first part of Dawntrail wasn't really about us. Like, we took a backseat. We were the supporting cast for Wook Lamont. And then in the latter part, even the latter part with Alexandria and everything, a lot of for what we experienced, a lot of people kind of like, you know, go past one thing in particular, and this is kind of similar to what Edmont did in Heaven's Ward. This, I mean, you could say for a fact that this was Wook Lamont show 100%, but at the same time, it was Aaronville's.
Yes.
And like Aaronville, like, and I love the fact that we really explored Aaronville's history, because we don't really, like, outside of a few interactions, you know, in Charlian and whatnot, in our travels, we really haven't explored his character. So for him to come along with us and be a huge part of the story, especially in the latter part, that was really well done. Now, a lot of people feel a certain type of way about the final zone. I liked and disliked it for certain reasons. I hate the fact that it's I wouldn't say it's almost Endwalker to a T, because it wasn't. Because, you know, people actually came back in the end from Endwalker. Yeah, I just hate the fact that I understand what we did. I just hate the fact that it's a fucking dead zone. We literally took the light. We haven't done anything like that, and for the writers to even consider doing that, like, not just in a literary perspective, but in a gameplay perspective, like, you are killing off a zone. It's brave, but I fucking hate it. Like that.
Damn.
So,
I
Sly,
fucking hate it.
you want to know something really funny about the last zone, which is weird to say after what you just said?
Yeah.
So I hinted at this last week without saying it outright, but if you go into New Game Plus, the whole zone lights up again.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured.
Yeah. So whenever I'm doing fates and everything, I just turn all the lights back on. And I've had people tell me that they're insulted that I do that because it undoes the entire purpose of that, like, last zone. And I'm like, yeah, but it looks pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm doing the super fate on the lit up version of it, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you know, it's funny, people were saying that before I had done the story, so I was like, I mean, I can kind of pick up what happened here without having watched the cutscenes, but, like, you know, that's that's what it was. So I have the freshest memory probably here of the story, especially given that I voice act all the unvoiced scene, which I don't have too many criticisms of Dawntrail. I did feel like there was a greater volume of unvoiced scenes here. And to be clear, when Endwalker came out, they said because it was a finale, they were doing more voiced scenes. But I don't feel like that's a reason enough to have less voiced scenes in Dawntrail, as far as I'm concerned. Definitely a notable down point. I also felt that there was a lot of character focus, especially in the first half, without a lot of, not necessarily not a story focus, but it was definitely, it was tell, don't show. is how I like to word it. So those are my two criticisms of it. That being said, I'm big on learning new stuff, learning about new characters, and they introduced the character moments can be a problem if there aren't good characters. I felt like there were a number of good characters and clear growth between them. Wukavu is, of course, a big favorite, playing to a funny Japanese trope that, when translated and localized, is somehow even funnier because it makes it look more ridiculous when he does the whole, oh my God, no, never mind. Like, that's not meant to like look good and like English, and like it's a very like Japanese trope. So that was good. But I mean, there are characters that you start off hating who you grow to love, characters who you don't know that you grow to hate. And that's all because of the way that they actually advance their stories. And I felt like their individual character stories were the big strength of Dawntrail. And it was the one thing that definitely kept me going throughout most of them all. But Cool Jaja, of course, you think, not that he's going to be the villain. You've kind of realized he's too incompetent to be a villain way too quickly. But at the very least, an antagonist for some degree. And no, we're not talking about the corn dog, Sly.
No, it's just, no, if there's one thing I hate, another thing I hate about Final Fantasy is how they try to redeem certain characters after certain events. This man just literally fucked over entire people, released a fucking primal, and now we're all buddy. He fucked up our tacos too. That's the important part.
That was our first impression of him, was him. Although, I'm not going to lie, if that happened to me, I'm scraping the inside of the bag, dude. I already bought these tacos. It's all the same ingredients in there. I'm getting this
trash can nachos.
No, I'm getting this. Listen, the bag, nothing fell out of the bag. The bag wasn't punctured, so you just get a spoon or your hand. You go in. I already bought the tacos. It's all the same thing in there. Like, it's fine. Just get in that bag.
That's basically what you're doing is trash can nachos. You're doing like the little Frito bag, and you put everything in there and shake it up. Yeah,
it's a taco salad. It's a taco salad now.
Yeah, I respect it. Like, you can't waste that food.
Exactly. It's like, what, you think you intimidate me? Watch this. That's right. That's how I deal with problems, by finding solutions, not complaining. But that was my overall thought. That's largely for the first half. For the second half, it felt like how do I want to put it? Where is the story going in the next 10? The first half was, here's a new land we need to explore. The second half was, what's going to happen over the next 10 years of Final Fantasy XIV story? What plot lines are opened up? What questions are there still? And they make sure there are a handful of questions before the end of everything. But they also do a good job of answering questions I had going throughout. They take some time to explore the lore of the South Sea Isles, which is very important, which also dives back into some earlier calamities, which helps narrow down the shard that you're dealing with. Of course, Ishtola finding out there's any form of interdimensional travel is always going to be exciting, because that's literally her life goal at this point. And all throughout, one thing that they really nailed was the Scion's level of presence. The number one thing I think a lot of people were surprised was, the Signs of the Seventh Dawn, we're no more. By the way, we're still kind of here. We're still pretty much here.
Yeah.
And the Scions are omnipresent in most scenes, but they are certainly not the focal point of any of the scenes. Alphino has a few things to say here or there. Alice has a few things. Like, there's moments with them, but they really do focus on Wuklamat and Kona and Zoral John, the other characters, and what moves them and what drives them. And we just act as if, like, Estinian has like 5 scenes the whole expansion. He's just there to remind everyone he's probably the strongest NPC in the game. Like, literally, Alexandria is coming out. I didn't even have to think about it. My first thought was like, dude, Estinian could wipe that shit out in like 5 seconds. What are we even worried about right now? And maybe that was a bit of a problem with the stakes of like the invasion part. I was like, bro, it's like, we have Estinian. Like, what the fuck do we care? I don't even need me. We just need him.
Estinian just wants to chill in Texas. I think that's his calling at that point. He's in the saloons. He's getting swindled, but when push comes to shove, he'll throw it down.
Yeah.
So that was, I feel you on that.
But I enjoy just watching a character kind of learn and grow. And for me, that's what Wuklamat particularly was. Very clear. I mean, her and Kona basically grow to figure out their faults through each other and through the people they're with, and then come to kind of build on their strengths. And I think they maybe tell you that they're doing that a little too much instead of just witnessing it. And that's the only complaint. Like they actively say, oh, this is what's wrong with me. I need to do better, blah, blah, blah. Instead of just kind of learning and going. Again, that's a lot of tell, don't show. So that's one of the only complaints I have. But that being said, I had a good time. It's not amazing. I didn't have a bad time. Maybe a few pacing issues here or there, like at a couple of small parts. But I had a good time. Just a nice level, just, all right, that was smooth. Not really any bumps. Get a single thumbs up. Could have been bad, but wasn't. That's how I felt, at least.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Like, I would generally agree with you there. I mean, as I said as much as well. I think one of the things that stood out to me in the first half, I think, was I expected a little bit more in terms of nuance to Wuklamot's writing. I like a lot about her. I like her presence. She has the heart to tell this kind of story. She's a shonen protagonist, basically, which works for what Dawntrail is trying to show you in the first half, especially. But there are moments where she kind of gets away with her naiveness. Like she gets away with it and doesn't. There are times where she faces the consequences of her being naive, but not to the degree in which I would expect from Final Fantasy XIV. So in that regard, I felt like, all right, we're kind of letting her skate away with certain things for the sake of like, we need to move on to the next story beat. We can't dwell on this a little too much, but she does have incredible moments, like that solo duty where you get to control her. That was the first time I stood up. I was like, let's fuck. There's nothing I love more than a solo duty where you control another character. And Walker had a bunch of that. And I was playing at 3 a.m. My roommate's asleep. I'm just like, let's fucking go. So that was like one moment where I'm like, oh, this is peak Wuklamot. Like she's strong as hell. She doesn't understand how strong she is, but in this moment, I'm going to play and I'm going to experience how strong she is. And so that was like one of the highlights for her. But I think a lot of the conversations that you have with her, like up on the government bill, I forgot what it's called, but like where the king of Tural lives, where the Dawn Servant lives.
The palace.
Yes. I think I expected a little bit more. Yeah. I was expecting a little bit more like self-reflection, a little bit more like, it was always like, hey, we solved the problem, so there's nothing to worry about. And I think in the thing, like, that's fine. I'm not necessarily like saying it's bad, but when it comes from Final Fantasy XIV, like a game that has showcased over the last 2, 3, 4 expansions that it does kind of, it's able to revel in some of that nuance. It was something that I felt was missing from Dawntrail. But we do like I feel like the second half gets there. It was just like I was waiting for that to happen, and I feel like waited a little too long for that. But again, I think like you said, it's good. It was just like I don't really have a problem with it, but it could be better. But I'm not tripping. So that is one thing I thought about, and I mentioned in my review.
Yeah, that's fair. So we should probably start by talking about that first half. I mean, sequentially, that's kind of where you have to go. And the entire first half is Wuklamot becoming Dawn Servant. And I'd say that this is where almost all of her character growth takes place. Whereas the second half, she's there and the growth she's had, she's applying, but she doesn't really grow anymore. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. This
is where I think you can judge her entire character. And I think this is also where you can judge Kona. You get an idea of Zoral Job, Akul Jajag, like it's literally for all the character moments. So are there any characters who stood out in that first half that were a focus of the first half? So I guess to keep a few out of the conversation, Kryl doesn't have many moments in the first half. Erenville doesn't have very many moments in the first half. So really the more Alexandrian components we would leave for that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say any characters per se. I think really the one thing that stood out to me more in the first half, and this is kind of similar to what we experienced in Walker with the other allied tribe and just other peoples in general, was just the cultures in general. Like everything stood out, like the Hanu, the Pelu, just being a part of that, and seeing how the Pelu are hustlers, baby.
Best Buy employees out there.
Yeah.
Getting their commission.
Um, just and experiencing a Brute Pibil and absolutely knowing off the dome like how that shit's gonna be made before they even say a word. I'm like, bro, that's the culinarian in me, man. It's like so much hit like with the culture and how like the writers just nail the culture that they're mirroring in a sense. So it wasn't really characters that stood out to me. I mean, there are certain characters like the person in charge of the Pelu Pelu. I forget his name.
Tobley?
Tobley.
So Tobley's the
Tobley.
one everyone should know because that's the only. So for the history, the Pelu Pelu are from 10-2. He's pretty much the only one in 10-2.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So Tobley.
I thought Mablu personally.
Wooklamats.
I was a bigger Mablu fan. Mablu's given a lot more time.
Yeah, I mean Mablu too. And then meeting Wooklamats' actual father.
Yeah.
That too. So yeah, outside of the main characters, there were so many good characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, I mean, you all have mentioned that Kona is like probably in the first half, I was a little bit more invested in him because it felt like he was more self-reflective, that he exhibited a personality trait where, hey, I need to reckon with my shortcomings and I need to do it now. If I really want to be Dawn Servant, there are things that I need to fix. And there's that one conversation at the cabin where with Urianger and Thancred, and I think this is post when you have to save Wooklamats from Bakul Jaja. And he has like this moment where he's like, I don't know if I'm actually fit to serve, but I know what I'm about. And I feel like I need to make up for it. And I'm like really thankful that I have Thancred and Urianger alongside me to grow. And I really like that personality trait where he understands his shortcomings. It reminds me of like Grahatia. Well, Grahatia was Crystal Exarch, not just because they're both cat boys, but they know what they're capable of, but they also know what they're lacking and their flaws. I just love a good cat boy also. So I don't know. I appreciate Wooklamats also, but as a compliment to her, having Kona as like, hey, this is my brother who knows things that I don't, and like the fact that they become like co-Dawn servants is like I kind of saw that from a mile away, but the fact that it happened, I'm like, this is really fucking cool. And I'm happy that he's not just like a character who's like, okay, he's been expended, he served his purpose. Like this is someone who's probably going to be continually, if just in the background, someone who's at least important. They do the groundwork for him as a supporting character, and I think that came into focus with like the moment before you need to go save Wooklamats, and he's like trying to chase down the boat, and he's like, fuck, dude, I fucked up. This is like the one thing that I actually care about in this world, and I fucked it up. And then Thancred's like, listen, dog, I've done this shit many times before. I got you, buddy. And then so, yeah, and it's like you said, the Scions taking a back seat, but still being like mentors to these new characters. And so I think they're able to find a good balance of, you remember who the Scions are, so we're going to use them to bring out the best in the new characters and in certain moments. It didn't, like, again, the first half doesn't have a lot of those moments. It's not like it's piled on with that, but when they do execute on that, I'm like, yes, this is the shit that I love.
It's really interesting seeing who they paired with who, because Wooklamats is bravado with a lack of confidence, and she basically had all the youngest cast members with her.
Yeah.
Alpha No Alice, like Kryl is only like 20, 21 years old, and
I
Alpha
just
No
found
Alice are both 16. And then us, but that's not fair. Kona got two dads, essentially.
Yes.
So he
He's got wisdom.
Yeah, he got a lot of wisdom and experience, and like a little bit more people who allowed him to be a little bit more introspective. Yeah. Whereas when I feel like when you're younger, you're a little more prone to kind of trying to impress upon others, or like to actually shape it, like Whereas Thancred and Urianger know a little bit more about just let him experience the moment, give him a little nudge here and again, let him pick up and learn. And then you get the other two, Zoral Ja, who looks like he's been manipulated by Jafar since he was a kid, and Bakul Jaja, who had
It's a fucking meathead.
Yeah, and then Bakul Jar Jar, who's a meathead who's just trying to make up for centuries of his people's like, killing mass numbers of their own kind to try to create blessed kids. So there's you can tell who had the better supporting crew and why they got to where they were. Although we end up becoming Bakul Jar Jar's supporting crew by about the middle halfway point of everything.
Yeah. Can't fucking stand that.
Yeah. Why not?
It's because it's just so predictable, in my opinion.
What Bakul Jar Jar's like arc? Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. I think you're right to think. I mean, I was like, because you said that it's pretty early on where this guy's too dumb to be the main villain, so he's going to have a turn. You could see that from my way. In terms of like how that happens and what it is actually about, I think that's the valuable part. That I think it helps make it work in the end, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think that Wooklamot does go through a lot. Wooklamot just struggles to share emotions is the big thing that you kind of pick up with her early on. Like the few times where she does, she really is like awkward about it because she doesn't think she's supposed to. I mean, you have to kind of like reassure her. So I feel like I got plenty of development out of Wooklamot in that first half. So I actually enjoyed following along and being a part. I don't mind being like literally. You mentioned the solo duty. If you could see your character doing this in the distance, just.
Yeah. Yep.
You can just look over and your arms crossed like right next to a tree, and that's it. That pretty much describes Dawntrail in regards, especially to the first half. Yeah.
Yeah, like you being the mentor is like that's the moment where I'm like, hey, this isn't my place necessarily. This isn't my land. I don't necessarily have the personal stakes here, but I want to support this person who is hired me to be their mentor, basically. And I was just like, cool, like. Let them have that. Let them. Like, the Warrior Light doesn't need to be the world's police. So, I do. Yeah, like you mentioned, I think that's cool as fuck.
Yeah, it's very. I guess I consider it a very Azim moment because like he ran around and he helped and saved people, but he was essentially the world's biggest supporting character back in his time. Like that role that he or she, depending on your character, filled was essentially that. And so this kind of embodies that essence for me. Whether or not it's the most entertaining, down to individual taste. But for me, it works in that moment. A little bit weirder later on, where we're still kind of a supporting cast, but it's more in our territory. We're like, oh fuck.
Yeah. Once you start talking about like shards and realms and time travel and shit, it's like, okay, I need to take back the reins because this is actually some serious shit. So, and I feel like you get enough of that to where it doesn't feel like you don't have too much of a conflict of like, hey, I'm the Warrior of Light. I should let me handle this in a way. So yeah, it's cool. It's all good.
Quick sidebar, just out of morbid curiosity, because we are beginning a new arc. Because we just had this whole in-game type deal. Do you feel like we're beginning to build a new Avengers / Scions?
Oh, buddy.
A new one? No. I think Estinian's going to go everywhere we go by coincidence. And then I think they'll cherry pick the Scions as we go. I think when Dawntrail's done, we don't see Wooklamot for a very long time. I think it's going to be one of those, like, when we were done with Ishgard, like, yeah, we went back to Amrik if we needed something. But, like, he wasn't there, like, omnipresent, you know? Same with Edmont and anyone else. I think that's what it's going to be. And then in the key moments, it'll play. I mean, that they already did that this expansion with Reacher coming back. Like, we technically left Thavnir behind. And then you get that badass moment where the Endwalker theme kicks in and Reacher flies in. And you got little Azdaya for a little bit of... Like, that's the kind of moment I expect Kona and Wooklamot to have somewhere down the line.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think so. Man... I'm sure we'll talk about that moment, but fuck, man, that was one of the turning points for me too. But I think also in the first half, since we had mentioned Bakul Jar Jar and his sort of turning point, and we had touched on it, that shit was pretty dark because up until that point, I kept telling my friends who were playing it with me, this is a Disney ass expansion. Like this feels like a Disney movie.
Song alone tells you that.
That's just a Disney
Lion
musical
King
right
ass
there.
song.
1000%. That was my first thought when I heard it. I'm like, all right, I see what you're doing. This is a Disney ass expansion, which I like. I don't mind. Try something new, see how it lands. But what that moment when Bakul Jaja takes you down there to the sky deep cenote, and he was like, "Hey, this is the grave of 1,000 dead children. I was the one to survive. I'm scarred by this shit for the rest of my life." That was like, oh yes, this is Final Fantasy 14 still. And I mean, I think that there are specific like short moments where they specifically say like, hey, this doesn't earn him redemption alone, which I think was important to sprinkle in there. Like, just because you're traumatized by all this shit doesn't mean you get away with fucking releasing an age-old dragon on entire people that we had to stop for your dumbass. So I think there are key moments like, hey, you still need to work for redemption. Like, we feel bad for you, and we get that backstory. In terms of like, you get there pretty quick, and I was like, all right, sure, like this works. But I think that does at least make Bakul Jaja not just like some kind of fodder character that is just, hey, the bad guy. You thought he was the bad guy, but now he's cool. And it really puts into perspective like the Mamulja culture in that way, because when you get to Yaktel, it's basically divided into two different zones. Like the two halves of it are completely different. So when you go down to the underground and you meet a lot of the Mamulja and understand their culture a little bit, I think that is such a strong moment where I'm like, oh yes, there's still like a lot of dark shit tucked underneath the surface of this place. And to use Bakul Jaja as like the crux for showing you that is like the two-headed Mamulja are like, they're special for maybe all the wrong reasons. I really like that moment. So
yeah, Yaktel has a lot of pretty standoutish moments. I also like that the lower half of Yaktel, I have a feeling we're going to learn a bit more about it in Cosmic Exploration, but it's essentially a giant meteorite pit that all of the soil has been tainted and warped by what's down there. So why no, Sly?
Just still creeps me the fuck out.
Oh, what, the cenote?
Yeah.
That's to be fair. That's fair. It's crazy. It's weird to me that the bottom part of Yaktel, it's got a door to another dimension. It was where a meteorite fell. I was like, what the hell? What?
And dead babies.
1,000 dead children in this water.
1,000 dead children. Yeah.
Dead babies.
Yeah. And what looked to be alien chocobos.
Yeah. That was crazy.
Those motherfuckers are aliens. Can't change my mind. Ain't nothing else but aliens. Can't wait to get one as a mount.
Oh my god.
Place my for glam for my current chocobo. Fuck it. Yeah, and that's kind of the thing when having the discussion about the first half. It's kind of strange to have a discussion about any particular part of the story. And I think that's where some people's criticisms come in, because it's not, we know what happened this whole way through 90 to 95. We know about Bakul Jaja stepping on tacos and how the people think of the different Dawn Servant claimants, who sides with who. There's a lot of you talking to NPCs and them making it very clear who they stand with and whether or not they're willing to help or whether or not they're going to make it easier or harder for you, et cetera, et cetera. All the way to the very end where you get the 7th keystone and he's just like, I won't let that happen. Like, there's no way. You can't let that happen. That 7th keystone is pretty much the key turning point in the entire thing, because I think that's really what sets Zoral Jaw down his path as well. The fact that even happens in the first place. But it's hard to talk about the story. Like, for example, when we talked about Endwalker, we had to talk about, getting to Garlemald, and then we had to talk about, events on the moon, and then we had to talk about the first instance of the fight. And like every 2 levels, there's kind of like a path that winded, and we had to break down. Here, it's not really the case, and I can see why that's definitely not as enjoyable for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You're
totally right. Because it's broken into 2 halves rather than like one thing leading to another.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think there's still value in like taking this kind of route to get to that point. But yeah, I just appreciate that they're trying some new stuff overall. Like, honestly.
Yeah. Is there anything else in the first half in particular note that you don't think we touched on? Because like obviously we didn't touch upon specifically, the Pelu Pelu with building up to that next element. We didn't talk about Mrhappy and rebuilding the thing. We just kind of brought it all into like one big heap in particular.
Man, I just want to say one thing. It is painful to listen to the Giants talk.
Why? Well, they just imagine like.
Yeah. And like it makes me feel uncomfortable because I'm imagining the voice actor in this booth just destroying their vocal cords.
What's one of Gerfurler's lines during the dungeon fight?
I don't even remember.
Chat, give me one.
Give us one.
Because I voice acted the whole thing, so I had to do the troll voices.
Oh,
as well.
yeah. Oh man.
Like guys, I don't just read it. I try to get somewhat close, and I kept losing the Spanish accent the whole time. I couldn't get. I would just go back to like I'd go from like Alphino to someone else, and I'd be like, I can't. Chronicles of Eld, recall the horror of rolling water. Yeah, that's right. It's like Chronicles of Eld, recall the horror of rolling waters.
That's pretty good, man.
Yeah.
The fact that you're bouncing between different styles, that's crazy, man. But yeah, I think in the first like that trial against was it Voldemort, like that trial was sick. I didn't expect them to do duty support for the first trial or the second trial, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
But I fucking I use duty support all the time, except for like you can't use it on the final trial, of course. But I just love the idea that the fact that Zeralja, Kona, Wukelmat's here, Alize, Alphino is here. Like everybody's here. This is the party. I'm not queuing with none of y'all motherfuckers. I'm here with my homies. We're doing this shit. That was such a cool fight. Creative mechanics and just like one of the moments I hung on to. Like I will stick with 10 more hours of doing nothing if this is what I get. Get some peak type shit right there. But I think the dungeons are really creative. Like the first dungeon, like I ran like 20 times during the preview event, so I was like, okay, whatever, I just want to get through this. But the second dungeon, the third dungeon, I was like, okay, yeah, like I see y'all are. I mean, they always do great dungeons. I think. I don't think any dungeon's like been a real miss, but it's nice that like these things still feel refreshing. And that's in the first half, because like in the second half, I think they really kick it up a notch. But yeah, there's something I'm forgetting. But anyway, the zone. I just think the zones, like how Mrhappy is like the Andes Mountains, and this is like Peru, and like has its own. They live elsewhere and they have to deal with different environmental things and different histories and cultures, and that ties back to, is it Kozumaku, or I forgot the other zone.
Kozamuka.
Kozamuka.
Yeah, and like I didn't really dig what that zone is. It felt a little too Disney for me. The things you went through in that zone, I was like, all right, this is a little too a little. I'm not 10 years old.
Sorry, we have Wookaboo. It's fine.
yeah, and so that's like one of the highlights. But still, like, it just everything felt so different, and I appreciate that about the first half.
Sly, anything that we didn't touch upon?
No, we pretty much touched upon everything. Like I said, like the culture was big to me. Yeah. Experiencing all the allied tribes and whatnot. I can't can't wait to learn even more with the Pelu Pelu. Thinking they're probably going to be what your crafter or gatherer tribe. Thinking, definitely. So. Yeah,
one last thing.
There's my people. Go ahead.
When Kona shoots his tablet, he said, "Fuck it, I'm not running for Dawn Server no more." Shoots that shit. He's like, "Fuck it, I'm on your side, Wukelmat." Like during the solo duty against the ghost of Gulul Jaja, I was like, "This is my fucking boy, hell yeah!" That was the turning point for me. I'm like, "Oh, Kona, like he doesn't have anything underneath. He doesn't know like secret motive or anything. That's our boy. That's our bro. Literally our bro." So. That got me hyped, and then from then on, I was like, I really like these new characters. Hell yeah,
yeah. That I had a similar reaction. I saw it coming from the moment we, like that. I kind of saw that exact, like him shooting his own tablet. From the moment he said that he was glad he was on Wuklamat's team when they drew stones. Yeah. I like all of us looking at the other team being like, there's no fucking shot those two can do this. No fucking chance those two can do this, right? Like even if they wanted to write a twist, they couldn't write a twist to make that work.
Yeah. I think the rules of the competition were like kind of flimsy. I was like, all right, we're gonna like I like this. Like, hey, in order to be Dawn Servant, it's not about power. It's not about strength. It's about understanding how to work with people. I like the concept. The challenges themselves were like, all right, like cool. I understand what we're going for here, but overall, I think that the message that they send in the first half of this game, I think is really important. So I give them props for that.
Yeah, I'm of the same mind. And then we beat the ghost of Galul Jaja. And while people might see the actual Dawn Servant ceremony as kind of the official halfway point, I'd say in terms of the story, the actual defeating of Galul Jaja's ghost is, because that's kind of the tipping point for Zoralja that sets up the second half to kind of go the way that it does. So you beat Galul Jaja's specter. Zoralja had already lost to it. And he kind of faces a similar problem to what Bakul Jaja does, but goes the other way with it. So Bakul Jaja is burdened by legacy, which is literally the name of one of the achievements. I think the level 99 achievement after you beat Zoralja is actually called Burden of Legacy. But you obviously end up resolving that within Mamuk and kind of pushing him in a different direction. Zoralja loses his fucking mind under the same pretense. And that's basically what's explored, especially in the trial later with him. And it sets in motion the entirety of the second event. I've seen a lot of people upset that Zoralja just kind of loses his mind over this. And I don't know if I can agree with being upset that he loses his mind. That's my favorite thing.
Because it somewhat feels a little bit forced with Bakul Jaja's father. Let's say he doesn't disqualify him. Do you think he really would have lost his mind that much?
Yeah, I think no matter what, him not being Dawn Servant was automatically going to lead down this path. But I think especially what the challenge was, the 7th challenge being to beat Galul Jaja at his peak. I think that especially kind of, no matter what, it would have happened if he didn't win. I'm sure of it, but still.
Yeah. I think it's strong enough. The fact that, because I think they allude to it in the beginning where Kryl, like the first time Zoralja walks out as like a candidate, and Kryl's like, yo, there's something really off about this motherfucker right here. I can sense it because I got the fucking echo and I know. So from then on, I was like, okay, that dude is going to be, he's secretly the strongest one. And you get a little bit of that there's an early scene where Bakul Jaja and Zoralja, he just fucking socks him in the gut and says, yeah, motherfucker, I'm the one. And I was like, oh, he's going to be the bad guy. In terms of how we get there, we'll see. But they hint towards it. That isn't necessarily like the most like it's not the most creative storytelling, but they do get there.
Yeah.
So, and it's really weird. Like as I get older, I kind of understand a little bit more. Not that I've experienced it myself, but I start to understand like the incompetence that you feel as you get older, and like I'm not the one, and you don't know how to take that, and you don't know how to understand it, and it fucks with you in a really weird way. Listen, I ain't gonna be no Zoralja. I ain't got those kind of motivations.
So we're gonna end the show right now. If that's
but as like a character arc for someone, I'm like, okay, I think I can at least understand how this character gets to the point that they do. So I think it's strong enough, I would say. But he does once he becomes like the main villain, I think that shit is crazy.
Yeah, a big thing is people don't feel like it's justified. I honestly just took the take that like not everything needs to be justified in a sense. Some people are just really fucked up. Like sometimes the mental chemistry is just not there. And he is as Chas with, he has like 30 years of like just everyone telling him he's the best, he's number one, he's going to be next, is like, this is mine, I'm the actual trueborn, I'm the miracle. And then you're none of those things at all, and you don't have an identity, and you can't achieve anything, and he just falls off a cliff essentially.
Yeah. And he finds the thing that can make him the most powerful person in that world. And if you're that person, you see that like, oh shit, this is my ticket, and I'm going to obtain that no matter the cost. And that's what happens to Zoraal. He like, hey, you can get Alexandria Tech and kill anyone you want and rule the fucking world. Of course he's going to take that, and of course it's going to drive him mad, which you see in the second half.
Yeah, I will say though, I kind of does anyone know if any of the crafting quests talk about Surreal Jaw more? Because I want to know how Jafar got like how the fuck he got this into his mind. Because I have to think Surreal Jaw played a big role in all that too.
Yeah, huh?
So far, what I've seen from watching Mrhappy, no, they don't mention it.
Okay, yeah, that's all I'm saying. Like it and keep in mind, we're talking about the 30 years with Sphene where he goes extra crazy. He was crazy in the however many years he was alive before that too. So like he's just constantly kind of feeding his own like emotion. It's just like in his head. You ever just honestly, you know what, Zoraal, he's like the worst possible version of streamer imposter syndrome. All right. That's what it is. It's just like when you're like, man, I got all this going for me. You know, I'm royalty. I'm strong. I can do. And he's just like, nah, dude. I'm not good. No, he's still better than me. He's still better than like you're only seeing that one thing that like makes you hate yourself, and you just keep feeding yourself over and over again. It's like your own little echo chamber in your head.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, man, there's. And once Zoraal goes into like fully embraces that Alexandrian tech, it is kind of haunting in a way, especially when you see it the first time. That shit is, I was like, yo, the Arbiter is back. Holy shit, it's Energy Sword Sunday. He's got 2 of them shits too.
You know what's funny? So on YouTube, people were trying to find like ways to make thumbnails to still like have stuff for Everkeep. And I literally saw one that just says Everkeep Extreme, and it's just a picture of Arbiter, with a fucking laser sword. And I was like, that's so funny. It's really obvious, and it's still a spoiler, but it's really funny.
Oh, man.
But then so after crowning Dawn Servant, which I love the scene, it's a little Disney, but again, Wook naming Koana as the vow of reason to her vow of resolve. Think that's an overall good scene. Just smile makes it feel a little bit more cartoonish than I think it needs to feel. Then we go to Shelani. We start exploring with Aaronville. Chat brought it up earlier. Of course, as soon as we go to America, it's about war and crime and guns.
Guns.
Instantly upon going to America.
Hey, buddy, hey, partner, you don't belong in these parts right here. Go back to the saloon and mind your business.
Instantly the conflict. You don't dwell on that for too long, which I appreciate. They kind of just get you familiar with Shelani and some issues there as you're passing through. And then Alexandria comes in. Galul Jaja, who is a great character, by the way. Couldn't say enough positive about him, given that in Final Fantasy XI, he's not really a character. So there wasn't really, they had to make up a character. It's like with the 4 fiends from last expansion, like they weren't really characters in Final Fantasy IV. So what they did in 14 is completely unique and not really inspired by that. But in here, it's pretty much the same deal. It's just a completely and I appreciate that big time, because otherwise it would have been very not interesting. Huh. And then we're going on this journey to figure out what's in this dome.
Oh, the dome.
The dome, which another really awkward use of smile I felt was the train building scene.
Oh, yeah. That was the moment I was like, all right, relax. Let's chill on this. I was like, this is still a Disney-ass expansion. Oh, man. I think it's so funny that, like, it's like all of these textbook Old West American things. The railroad, guns, saloons, the accents, the attire. I'm just like, God, this is so fucking sick.
Can I say that hearing an American accent in 14 is the weirdest thing?
I don't care what kind of plot twist y'all motherfuckers got. Having it not just an American accent, a Texan accent in 14, I was like, yo, this is different.
And one of my favorite characters from there is, of course, Magnus 2.0.
Yeah.
And he's got like the deepest one. Like he's straight up. I think honestly, he sounds like what's his face from 7 Remake. Not the one of the 3 dudes from what's it called? Wall Market. the cowboy from Wall Market. What's his name? I've already forgotten. Chocobo Sam.
I forget.
There you go. Chocobo Sam.
Chocobo Sam.
Yeah,
sure.
he reminds me a lot of Chocobo Sam specifically because he's like, hey there.
He sounds like the guy who does the Ford commercials.
Yeah.
Wyatt Earp from Tombstone. What's his name? God damn it. Not Cranston, but yeah, Wyatt Earp from Tombstone.
That's the fucking hilarious. It's so because it's the gray haired cat boy, right? The guy who's like, kind of more or less the sheriff of
the
town,
Hrothgar.
Yeah.
Oh no, the gray hair. He also has that voice though.
Okay,
no,
yeah.
Magnus is the trolley guys, the three trolley people from the 1st. This is their source version. Yeah.
Which
also love that.
Oh, that was such a cool like parallel. It's like we're doing railroads again, but you remember them from Shadowbringers.
Yeah.
We got that here too, and I was like, oh.
This is what it feels like to drive a Ford truck.
Yeah, the Shadowbringers theme kicking in and everything.
Yeah. That was nice. It was nice. Yeah. But man, I almost wish there was an entire. I kind of wish they just dove deeper into the old. There's something about the Old West, like Red Dead Redemption 2 is in 14. Fallout New Vegas is in 14. Let me just be here. I just want to experience this more. But of course, that's a vehicle to get you to the next thing, and then so.
Literally,
like a
train.
Yeah. Like literally, let's drive this fucking. Let's get you to the next thing on the fucking the railroad expansion of the West. It's
Which
really
I will
fucking fun.
say, there's a mistake they made this expansion. That should have been a rail shooter
What'd they
section.
do?
We should have been able. We should have been able to
Oh
do.
my God.
I thought the same thing, man. Yeah,
I was like, we already have this in the Gold Saucer. Just repurpose it for
to
this.
be fair, they tried to do something like this with the Weapon series, and it didn't fly.
No, a lot of people like that. Not the fucking
I
music part where you press a button 6 times at the end, but I'm talking about when you control. No, I mean like just straight up like you just like just that, just like you're in the Gold Saucer again, like you're doing Air Force One. I would have liked that because that's the thing Dawntrail was missing was quests where you actually played.
Yes, absolutely.
So I would have loved that as something that they thrown in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they were afraid of people not being good at it though.
Yeah, and just like kind of like, hey, we want to do this specific cutscene so you get to the next dungeon rather than like throwing something in there. But that once you get on the train, that shit is crazy, man. I was like, what the fuck is 14 anymore? Because you have, like I said earlier, you have this cowboys versus aliens type thing going on where I'm in the Old West on a wooden railroad, and I have my crystal cat boy here casting magic on my 1800s ass train while there are like fucking robots on flying bikes shooting at me. This is like the contrast between those two aesthetics and concepts just blew me away. I'm like, this is so perfect. I couldn't have imagined 14 ever doing this, but they're doing it, and they're doing it so well. And you pull up to the Vanguard dungeon off of this you jump off of an exploding train. What the fuck is going on, man? That is just I was like, man, Dawntrail fucking rules, man. I don't care what it took to get here, but I'm here and I love this right now.
I like chat bringing up that once Aaronville gets on the gun, he misses every shot.
He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. They literally show him missing every shot.
That's so toxic. That's so toxic. And Vanguard is a dungeon also. That's a big highlight dungeon. I think for a lot of people, that's kind of, if not the highlight dungeon, the like one of. Not to mention it is the big glam spot. Everyone's trying to collect all their Vanguard glam because it's the more futuristic set. And right before that, you get your sex dungeon glam from the quests.
Yeah.
Sly, do you not like the sex dungeon glam?
No.
The level 96 crafted stuff? No, Slide, that's not your look?
Nah.
So I can imagine your character. Have you, because the aiming top, it's got like the ring in the middle, and it's got a belt here, 2 belts here, 2 belts here, with a leather jacket.
No, I'm good.
You know,
I'm good.
No, we got. I got spike shoulder pads, looking like a fucking football player.
Mad Max
football player.
That set's Mad Max. Mine was Sex. The aiming set is Sex Dungeon. It's not Mad Max.
That's what's up. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Hell yeah. And that again leads you into the dome, and this is where they're like, man, everyone thought there was going to be Final Fantasy IX, and we haven't really seen a lot of that till now. And then you step into it, and you're like, here's where all the Final Fantasy IX is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The number of references is staggering. A lot of them people don't even see.
I probably missed most of them, to be honest. I played 9 when I was 9 years old, and I haven't touched it since. So it's like one of the few Final Fantasies that I'm not fully fresh on. Like I remember Alexandria and like especially the last dungeon stuff, but the subtle things from that starting point on, I probably missed a lot of it.
There's also some quest dialogue that references other. There's one dialogue from an NPC where someone goes, "Legend has it that somebody used to think they could dodge lightning bolts by jumping out of the way at the last second." What an idiot!
I've done that 200 times to unlock, I don't know, a fucking weapon or some shit. I remember that.
Yeah. There's a whole lot of like little micro things. Even the theme of the expansion kind of dives a little bit more into Final Fantasy IX's themes. Final Fantasy IX is a lot about facing death and the inability or ability of others to do so. And that's kind of the entire theme of the Alexandria section is what death actually means to different people. So it's a very good play on at least referencing a lot of the themes from 9. So I got to give them credit for that. Without it being overbearingly like you have to have played 9 to get this specifically.
I feel like the Endwalker patch quests were a little too on the nose with 4 stuff, which I love 4 and I like. It's cool. I like that, but like you said here, I think it's makes a little bit more sense to like weave it naturally through what the story they're trying to say.
The nuance that's missing in the first half is more present from Alexandria, from like 87. I keep saying 87. Fucking Endwalker.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah,
97. It's like January 1st where you fucking sign the previous year still, and you're like,
yeah, still, yep.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. And we pretty quickly get into it. As a reminder, this is actually Erenville's homeland that was entrapped in the dome of Yasulani. And upon getting there, it's a mix of technologies, it's a mix of civilizations, it's just all kind of melded together. We learn that what this dome is and when it was made are kind of key things that push the story ahead. So the dome is an interdimensionally fused subsection of another reflection that was placed in Yasulani, and the time distortion within the dome made it so that 30 years passed in the time that the dome forms and you get inside of it.
Crazy.
Yeah. Time shenanigans.
Yeah.
And that's another big topic because the first had time shenanigans too, but every time we get there, it seems they make a verbal comment that says, no, time seems to be flowing normally right now. So I think we're okay. How do we feel about that? Every time they want to introduce time shenanigans, as soon as we get there, they're like, no, I think it's fine right now. It's like the thermostat was broken, but then like, somebody comes in and is like, oh, it looks like it's like when you call the plumber and they show up, but then the sink for some reason just gets like unclogged before they get there. And you're just like, oh no, when you call the technician because your internet's out, and then they get there and like,
the internet goes back.
Fine. Yeah.
That's exactly it. They're going to have to explain this shit away somehow. And it can't be ether. It's got to be something else.
Yeah. But not here. No, 30 years pass. 30 years of Zoral job brooding, 30 years of all the Yasulani citizens being subject to everything that's happening in there and learning about Alexandria and all of it.
Yeah, it's stepping into Heritage Found for the first time was it was a shocking moment where I'm like, okay, things are different. We're no longer dealing with this is very clearly, I mean, it's the first thing you do after you exit that part of Jacques Tarral that's just Spaghetti West. And then now you're like, literally you see the Everkeep, you see where Solution 9 is, and it's like, we're dealing with something completely out of our control, something completely different. We do not know what we're dealing with. And then you kind of tumble into this story arc about revolution and you link up with a revolutionary group. And I wish they spent a little bit more time developing that, but I do like that it's there. And I do like that that's the angle they're coming from, and you learn kind of the Krall's parents started this whole thing, and then there was like a rebellion, and all these things had developed beforehand, and you start to learn about that. And I always like a good revolutionary story. So the fact that was the crux of you moving through Heritage Found I think was like one of my favorite parts about that. Rather than stumbling and then be like, oh shit, technology, fucking cyberpunk. Everyone's got phones and Solution 9 is just the city of TikTokers. And it's like, all right, that's cool, that's sick. But I think like the dark undercurrent that moves you through that zone is very good.
You
Real
saying
talk.
that reminds me before you go, Sly. It reminds me of seeing all the people watching you eat, both there and in the final zone. Everyone being like, "These are people who watch React videos." That's what it is.
Yeah.
These are React viewers right here. They're just like, "What does he think? I need to parasocially grab onto whatever they say or think." Hold on. Let's see. Do they like it? Okay, they like it. Good. We like that. Good. Okay.
Oh fuck. Yeah.
One thing I kind of didn't understand, like, I understand that, people, had souls within their little whatchamacallits, and they could revive at a moment's notice. But what prompted that? Did people just, go full jackass and just start killing themselves willy-nilly, and they're like, okay, I need a second chance? Like, what prompted this?
I mean, I don't know if it's outright said, but I think when there's a couple lines that say like, oh, if you consume too many souls, whatever, you turn into a beast or something like that.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Well, no, so
And you
they
see that.
have beast souls as well.
Yeah.
Like they genuinely have souls that are beasts, so they can load in beast souls, and then they could use those power. Just that if you load too many, you risk physical alter. Yeah. Which the question, actually, to jump ahead, moves into the Arcadian potentially being a place where too many of those beast souls are used. So given that, here's the thing, the Arcadian is opened up as an entertainment venue, and it has to be a raid story. So something bad has to be happening within the way the Arcadian is run. So that little fucking Lalafell is probably going to be our main villain.
The fact that that's like one of the last things you see in MSQ is this fucking Lalafell saying like, the Arcadian is back open. I'm like, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then of course they also explain the lightning bits with the storm surge. That's what you're wondering about specifically. So as a thing.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, I understand like the justifications of doing it, but it's just it gets used so fucking willy-nilly now. It's just like, it's like a drug, y'all got any of them souls?
I mean, that's kind of that. There's that one scene where the guy's like, goes up to Sphene and is like, I don't have any more souls. I'm gonna fucking die. And then you go through this whole thing of like, hey, you need to work for souls. And I was like, oh, is this a statement about capitalism? Because I'm here for this shit. And then Sphene's just like, oh, sorry, I can't help you. That's just not how this world works. And I'm like, oh, damn, there's some dark undercurrents here on just the concept of souls alone. But in terms of like how they got to that point, I don't know, technology, ether. I'm sure that there's like something tucked under to explain that. But like on a conceptual level, though, I think it's really interesting that they have this. It kind of feeds into the theme of the final zone where people are like really toying with the idea of eternity and life. And so when you have this society that is essentially give themselves a second chance, it like warps your perception of what it means to be alive. So yeah, it all fits together. In what way, I'm not exactly sure quite yet, but it makes sense to me. I don't know.
Well, again, that touches a lot upon the Final Fantasy IX theme, where death is literally the theme of Final Fantasy IX, and eternal life is, kind of the antithesis of that. Which it's funny because we'll talk about Sphene a little bit more, but essentially Sphene, I saw, how did I see it worded? It was like, I think it was like Medion and Sphene, or I've seen people say Emmett and Sphene are two sides of the same coin as well. But I was like, it was like Medion, without prejudice, inflicted despair and death, and and then Sphene without prejudice tried to preserve and retain, or something like that. Where essentially at the cost of anything else, they were willing to do that same thing. And so so little too much. But granted, I don't think we're done with Sphene. I'll be honest.
There's There's a hint at the end.
There's a hint at the end. Although I think I know. I have a couple theories about that, but we're jumping ahead. Ooh. They use Heritage Found to introduce us to Sphene, who also a Final Fantasy IX reference, because Final Fantasy IX's main princess is Garnet. Another type of gem. Yeah, worth bringing those to light. And I like that there's this nice character who's just so immediately sus. Like there's no question in your mind that you're like, oh no fucking chance, bro. No way. I met a small bird girl who was really lovely too for about 5 minutes, and then she tried to destroy the entire universe. So I fucking you're not fooling me.
Yeah, my guard is all the way up.
How do we feel about Sphene? Because Sphene comes in as essentially, Zoral Jaw's innocence, if I'm going to draw a parallel, Zoral Jaw's innocence, Sphene is Emmett in this particular case in terms of late story antagonists. Yeah. Yes, Sly?
I'm seeing I can fix her in chat. No, we couldn't fix that bitch. I'm sorry. There was I understand completely where she was coming from, like doing everything she could for her people, but again, one, it really wasn't her. And
but wait, that means we can fix her, Sly. We just have to fix the program. Literally can fix her. We just need to get IT down here. Put in a ticket. Somebody put in a ticket real quick.
My God. Y'all are fucking wrong. I swear to God. Go ahead. God damn it. Y'all are fucking wrong.
Yo, Jira ticket will go a long way out there.
Since when has IT? Hey, I worked in IT. We fix things sometimes.
Oh, man. Sphene is such an interesting anchor for introducing you to all that stuff. Because, we know that there's something dark behind her, of course. But she's so heavily on the idea of, like, I love my people. I will do anything for them. It's like, yeah, I've heard that before. But once you, outside of Solution 9, when you, see, was it Namika, like, the old version of Namika? Mm-hmm. And when she, gets taken away. Oh, we're taking grandma away to the cloud. They literally call it the cloud. I'm like, they're uploading their consciousness. Holy shit. Is this what we're dealing with now in 14? We're talking about fucking
shit, yeah.
Yeah, some real dystopian shit. I'm like, yes, I want 14 to go here. This is like the shit that I want them to tackle because I know that they can. And then afterwards, where everyone's like, who are you talking about? Who's Namika? I'm like, oh, this is real fucked up. And it kind of starts to set in motion the idea that like the 9 themes of when we think about what does death and remembrance, like the importance of those things and how they manifest within our social circles and the people that we love. And that was just like a really heart-wrenching moment where I'm like, fuck, okay, this is where we're going. And I know that Sphene is up to no good. She gives us the Torah Solution 9 once we get there, and we're still like playing nice with her. And Wukelmot's still like, no, I want to understand more of your people. And like, yes, that's the objective, but you need to keep your guard up, dog. Like this is getting crazy. And like then you start to understand who the Endless are, and introducing the concept of not just afterlife, but eternity. And like it's a really uncomfortable theme to like really conceptualize, to really think about it. I mean, as the player, I'm like, this is making me feel like I'm having to confront and tackle things that I don't want to. And I love that 14 goes there, that it begs those questions, and
it makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah. And then like in contrast to the first half where it's like, hey, we're just gonna like tell you all of these things, but now we're gonna like flip this around and like, okay, now we're just like showing you a bunch of shit and you need to stew on it as we walk you through this new zone in this new city. So, and then Sphene just like kind of dancing around, be like, yeah, these are my people and their backs, you know what I'm saying? Like, isn't that nice? I'm like, sure. Yeah. We'll see about that.
You also get some reassurance because the people who have survived the 30-year time jump in Yassulani, well, they survived. They weren't killed when the dome was there, even though like an invading army came out and the capital was razed essentially, or at least it was. They took a bunch of pot shots to warn them more accurately. Mm-hmm. But everyone inside was technically safe. they may have died of old age afterwards, like we see with Namaka, or they may have been killed by a fiend, which could have happened outside of the dome. But they present the idea that everyone who came in was technically fine.
Yeah.
They just were given the choice to be a part of Alexandria or not, which it's hilarious that they're given the choice, given that they clearly weren't trying to give anyone a choice. At the same time, especially as you get a little bit later on where it's like, no, we're taking it now.
Yeah.
And I very much enjoy, because they just kind of drop a bit of information here. People forget the people who die. So then when they sets up for later, when Erenville's asking about his mother and nobody can remember her, they're like, you're just supposed to, like, it's a really obvious piece, but it's one that you don't necessarily think of it getting that way. Like, you might have assumed Kafkuya is dead when you see her in the robot form, but you also don't know about the Endless yet at that point, so you can't immediately draw that conclusion.
Yeah.
So,
oh boy.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole concept, like, especially people forgetting people, like, I personally have been struggling a lot with the idea of, like, there are things that would I be better off if I just forgot about that? It's something I've been really thinking about lately.
Are you wondering,
really
is there like somebody who you hated, or it's like, if they die and I just forget about them, like, is that fun?
No, it's maybe we're jumping ahead a little bit, but I think like Erenville's story about how he's struggling with the existence of his mom. My mom passed away last year, and like it was like probably the hardest thing that I've ever had to deal with in my life. But I thought that I had like come to terms with it, and I thought I was like, I can be okay moving forward with this. And so Dawntrail goes in a lot of different directions, especially with Erenville as an anchor for that, with his mom, who's like, who has a really hard time letting go of that. When she's right there, you can succumb to the fact that there are endless. People can live for eternity, but it's not really them. But do you want to let go? When push comes to shove, are you going to let them go? And then the idea of like Wuklamot and Namaka and then everyone just forgetting about her, I'm like, what if we're on like some Eternal Sunshine type shit right now, where it's like, what if I just erase this part of my memory? Would I be better off that way? And then it also incorporates the idea of people live on because we remember them. And that's one of the most powerful things about this whole arc of Dawntrail, is that no one's going to live forever. This idea of the afterlife or an eternal life is fucking fake. And you actually don't want that. Like, you might think that is like a utopian idea, but you do not want that. There's a conversation you have with Grahatia on that boat that really fucking summed this all up for me. But that, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know where I was going with that.
No, that's fine.
We'll circle back on it.
That's fine.
It's really, Dawntrail is like really fucking hit me hard, man. Like, this whole arc just touched on so many different things that I've been like struggling with in the past calendar year. And the fact that they just like nailed it to a T with all its different themes in these final hours, that's what made Dawntrail for me. But yeah, it's idea of like, would you want to go through life knowing no loss? Like, Grahatia literally says that to you. And I'm like, now we're talking about like how we ascribe value to life because it will end. And that's like, I don't know if I was in the right mindset to be like asking those questions as I'm playing Final Fantasy XIV for review. But I think that that's a microcosm of the fact that 14 is able to ask those questions in a really profound way that doesn't feel like some game is just trying to like provoke you to have these deep thoughts or whatever. It's like, no, 14 has earned the right to have these themes and ask those questions from characters who embody that stuff, especially with the fact that Grahatia is the one who asks you those questions and has that conversation with you, is what makes that so powerful. Because I know that this character has thought about this for a very long time, and he's the character who embodies this theme. So yeah, my bad. It's just like,
No, that was good.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's
I was gonna say the same about Graha, because there's everyone in that. Everyone you get to the last zone, they're all kind of dealing with their own version of it. And again, burdened by legacy, I mentioned earlier, but that kind of becomes on top of that. It's the legacy of the people who have passed. So
Yeah.
you know, Wuklamot has to face Namako, who was the mother figure of her life. She basically says as much. Kryl gets to meet her birth parents, which is I think maybe Kryl could have used a little bit more. They kind of just spring on you that she's from this dystopian land. Although she is from the source, technically. Her makeup is of the source. Yeah. So, in fact, they make note of that because I think they say Ishtola would have noticed if Kryl's etheric density was different, because if she was from a shard, her etheric density would have been less than that of everyone else. So yeah, but I think Kryl probably could have used more. I think just finding out that she sat at a meeting and found out, yeah, by the way, I'm from another shard.
I guess. Shit.
I'm from another reflection. Wow. And then basically fast forward to meeting her parents like way later. She just kind of gets blue-balled up until like right in that moment. She's just like, hey, can you tell me about my parents? No. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, oh yeah, I feel you on that. But the things you actually do in living memory with Kryl's parents, I think is really sweet.
Yeah.
It's so funny how, and like, yeah, the Golden Gate takes you to living memory, the last zone where the endless live and everyone has eternal life off of this fake premise that everyone's memories will just live on eternally. And so like, it's really funny because like when Kryl is with the endless versions of her parents, there's like these awkward moments where they don't know what to say to each other.
Fucking
and it's like, yeah, and
just starts deep throating his ice cream. Just full on, just hawks it down.
Let me break the tension and deep throat this ice cream. Is so fucking funny to me. And it's funny because like just moments ago, I was having this deep conversation with him that made me cry my eyes out. Yeah. And then he's doing this dumb shit here. It's like he is the perfect character. I don't care what anyone says. He is the perfect character. But I think it's like this really funny moment where it's like, I don't know what to say to my parents that I haven't talked to in 20, 30 years or my entire life.
Never known them.
I never known them. And then their final moments are like, go Maya, her real name, her birth name.
Which reference to Final Fantasy V, that was her middle name.
Ah, yes.
It was technically something else, but the localization, translation.
Yeah. So I thought it came around in the end. I do think it was a little abrupt because they have built up her parents as like, hey, they were the original revolutionaries who like built this technology and then realized it was bad and then rebelled against it. That's why this Oblivion revolutionary group exists in Jacques Tarol or in Heritage Found. But they kind of just show up at like, hey, they're Lalafell. And they're here. They're chilling. And I was like, okay, cool. That's fine, I guess.
Yeah.
But everything else that happens to then I think is really good.
Yeah. I really do like, so the lore they give there actually answers a lot of questions. It's the whole time I was going through, I was trying to figure out where Alexandria came from specifically. And so the Calamity of Lightning is the second calamity. The Calamity of Ice is the fifth calamity. So if this were originally, I was thinking maybe it was like a subsection of a rejoined shard that through technology, like brute forced being able to circumvent what the Ascians did, similar to the Crystal Tower technology that even the Ascians were like, what the fuck? How did you do that? Like Emmett's like, I made this tower. How the fuck did you do that? he was perplexed by it. So I thought like maybe it was that. But given that it was whole three calamities before, I don't think there's much time shenanigans that happened there. So likely it wouldn't be the 12th, which was the shard that was absorbed by the lightning calamity. Yeah. So that then you have to narrow down the other ones it couldn't be, and you kind of come up with like one of four that it could be. But it's still an aftermath essentially of a shard that was prepared to be rejoined, but was never rejoined. So it's kind of just like it's like the void equivalent, but it's just all lightning aspected energy at this point. So we know one of the four remaining shards that wasn't rejoined is probably just completely fucked. Most people think it's the ninth because that's one of the unrejoined shards, and it's Final Fantasy IX. Totally possible, but that's just a fun little like lore connection that just by saying they left the South Sea Isles, you just immediately can draw that entire connective tissue, and I definitely appreciated that.
Haps, did you do your usual thing of after all of this, did you go back and talk to Uno Calhai?
No, I have not been back to talk to Unukala, which should have been something.
Because I'm wondering what the fuck he would have to say.
I don't think he cares. It's not about the void. He doesn't give a shit anymore. He just wants to talk about the void. He doesn't want to talk about anything else.
Oh man, that's fucking hilarious. But yeah, I don't know. I just that last zone is just it's fucking crazy. Well, to back it up a second, I just want to talk about the level 99 dungeon. That is probably my favorite dungeon theme in a very long time. I have there's a 20-minute cut on YouTube right now. I'm listening to that shit on loop, and I want to fight everybody in the street shirtless. That shit makes me feel invincible, man.
Good. I'd rather fight people in the street shirtless than that fucking turtle. Anyway.
Fucking turtle. Fuck that turtle.
Hey, y'all like single pulls? Let's go.
Anytime we pull that turtle, I'm fucking LBing.
I respect it. I really like. All in all, I do really like that dungeon because that theme fucking hits, and like just the opening scene of you on a speedboat as like this insurgency group invading this 13 floor tower is so fucking cool to me. Holy shit! And like you go through the side. This feels like a fucking GoldenEye mission, and you have this fucking trance track playing with a Latin choir. Like Soken and the sound team were in their fucking bag, dog. They touched on like 20 different genres, nailed all of it, and this is where they're like. I thought that in Final Fantasy 16 he hit like the sickest like drum and bass beat in 16. He said, "Nah, fuck that shit. I'm about to one up myself and hit us with the level 99 dungeon." The Orogenics theme is it is one of my favorite songs in Dawntrail. One of the top dungeon themes for sure. It just really embodied this moment where we're fighting for something. We're crossing a boundary in which there's like kind of no return, at least in the context of the story.
Chat brings up a very important point, and I'll have to listen to it side by side. Orogenics is uses a D&B remix of the Ifa Tree theme from Final Fantasy IX.
Ooh.
Which makes sense given the tower is essentially the Ifa Tree. Although the Ifa Tree is featured somewhat later. Mm-hmm. But I'll need to do a listen to side by side for that one.
Yeah, I'm sure Silken's like, how can I incorporate these little things? The hideout theme is straight up the Tantalus theme, but a lo-fi chill beat, which is like, I didn't catch on until like later on. I'm like, oh fuck, I forgot that is like a direct reference, and it's got lo-fi beats, man. It's just crazy.
Yeah. I would also like to say, I haven't looked at the individual credits for the songs, but we have to remember Soken, he's the head of the department, but he does have 2 or 3 prodigies that he's been working with. And we know that a lot of them actually did work specifically on the Solution 9 bits. They're the same ones who basically made the Pulse album.
Nice. That is very apparent.
Yeah. So
I always make sure to like credit like Silken and the sound team.
But
like,
we don't always know who does which. Yeah, it's usually a while before we find that out.
Yeah. So I always want to be like, hey, it's like the same thing with like Persona, like Shoji Meguro is like the lead composer, but he has like 2 or 3 people alongside him who really conduct these songs, especially with like the new Personas and all that. So Silken is, of course, I fucking love him, but I know that there are people.
Yeah, he's the last stop no matter what. It doesn't get into the game till it gets past him.
Yeah. So, but it's just across the board. Dawntrail's soundtrack is just blew me away front to back, man.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Especially for me, it's the 100 dungeon.
Oh my god.
The final MSQ dungeon of Alexandria. That theme. I'm just like, yo, that's like, it's like a Dead Ends level, like an Amaranth level kind of hype dungeon for me. Until the elephant slows it down, but it's not as bad as the turtle. Like how chat was like, you can sleep the turtle. That doesn't make it die instantly. You still have to take fucking a minute and a half to kill the stupid fucking thing on its own.
You can't wall to wall that? I can't remember.
Well, there's 2 like Cyclopses beforehand, and all they do is make it even worse. If anything, just do another single pull on the 2 Cyclopses, then go into the room and deal with the turtle. It's way less frustrating, in my opinion. But yeah, so we get to learn a lot about Kryl. And then, of course, Aaronville gets his final send-off as he kind of been dealing with his pain the entire time through living memory and his inability to kind of cope with what's about to happen. And that's just kind of the pinnacle of the whole thing. And then from that point on, it goes to being a very Azem level threat. Like as soon as we have to go into Alexandria and deal, which a fun little tidbit, that goblet is almost certainly something Azem left behind. It does have
a little symbol on it.
It does have his symbol on it. And it reacts to Dynamis when we use it, when we use his stone, and we start calling people in. So I wonder if he left any other little treats and tidbits around the rest of the world.
Man. Speaking of like the trials, the Zeralja trial was
we
wild.
kind of skipped over talking entirely almost about Zeralja, didn't we?
We beat his ass and said, all right, we're going to move on to the actual threat. But that Zeralja, the Everkeep level 99 trial is fucking sick. I mean, just on like the normal version, I do think they get pretty creative with it. That is, it's not just the square arena where a bunch of AoEs drop. It's they do some interesting things. Thankfully, I could use my trusts and just follow wherever Grahatia goes. That's my boy. But that fight and that song that plays in that fight is so fucking hard. That shit is tough. I love that shit. That's great.
It reminds me kind of the mid-boss theme from Endwalker, the dungeon mid-boss theme at times, but like way more like drummed up and like bassy and fast-paced at times. It's got like moments that remind me of the riff from the Endwalker mid-theme. Yeah, it turns into a Warframe. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, Sphene definitely turns into Warframe. I have a friend who works for Digital Extremes, and I was watching them play the end of it, and when Sphene turns into her final form, they were like, that's just the next fucking Warframe that we're putting in. Of course, they were joking, whatever. But I was like, that's just a Warframe. What the hell?
It's a big-ass Warframe.
Yeah, it's a big-ass one, though. But yeah, I guess, to like cap off on the Everkeep Zeralja, it was... I feel like maybe it was a little bit forced, but still worked. Is with baby Galulja.
Yeah.
And Zeralja, where Zeralja's like, hey, this motherfucker's about to die. And then his kid walks up to him and was like, Dad, why didn't you want me? I hate it when stories do this. But the kid's like, I just wanted you to be... Baby Galulja literally says, I just wanted you to be there. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Why you want me, man? Why you want me, man?
That's exactly what they did. And it's like, I just wanted you to be there. You don't need to be a little fucking king who like can like pass on this huge legacy to me. I just want to play on the playground. That's all. And it's like, it's a trope, but it always fucking works. It always works on me, I guess. And the fact that that's how they cap off Zeralja, it gives like a nice closure and conclusion to that character. Like, we killed him, and he wasn't just some enemy that needed to get us to level 100 content. Because I know Baby Galulja is probably going to be an important piece moving forward. So the way they were able to tie that together with something definitive, I appreciated that.
There's a lot leading up to Zeralja that I appreciate that they go out of their way to do. They take some time again for some setup with Otis, who's another great character, who is a Steiner reference through and through.
Mm-hmm.
Very much
he has some of his animations like just outright.
Yeah, I noticed. Yep.
Yeah. So, but it's done very tastefully. If you didn't know who Steiner was, you don't like or hate Otis any bit more. But like him even being a robot is a reference, because in 9, Zidane calls him Rusty all the fucking time. So him being a 400-year-old robot in that particular case,
subtle thing.
It's the tiny things that like work when they do this and not on the nose shit like Omega, where here's the boss from Final Fantasy V, by the way. Like when they do that, I'm like, nah, dude, that's lame. Don't do that. You got to do the little things that like only matter to people who know it and do not take away from the people who don't know it. And that's really what, because I'm not a big 9 fan, but I appreciate all the little tidbits that they actually incorporate right here, because it's done very tastefully. Thank God there's no Tetramaster though. Anyway, that's the card game. That's the shit card game. Yeah. There's also no jump rope. Well, no jump rope in the game. Not yet. At least. Yeah.
Tetramaster you're talking about?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Tetramaster. Oh, boo. Sorry, Tetramaster's whack as fuck, especially coming off a triple tryout from 8.
Sorry, we got Queen's Blood now.
We got Queen's Blood now, so fuck Tetramaster. Nah.
Fuck triple triad. At that matter,
Yeah,
I was like, fuck triple triad when it comes to having fucking.
Not gonna argue against that.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they sprinkle about. I mean, again, it's just a lot of setup for the thing is, it's easy to jump right from talking about that. Like the reason we even got to living memory is because every piece of what you experience in Heritage Found and Solution 9 is literally prompting you for what you're going to have to resolve in living memory. Like Otis as a character, meeting him and getting to see his resolve. And he gives you kind of some introspective on like what the people wanted when they were alive, because now you've met him, who just his soul and a piece of him that's kind of just his memory formed with ether. And they're kind of just, it's two sides of the same coin, but there's like so much relief on him to know that he is who he is, even though he should just be glad that who he is inside of eternity is essentially like it makes him more content to know his life meant something than his death.
Yeah.
Which shouldn't technically matter because he's supposed to be immortal in there, but it matters to him. And that kind of keeps giving you the introspection that you need to be okay with the fact that you have to make the choice to like not let the sequence die. Or to not let the sequence complete and the interdimensional fusion happen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess I didn't really think too much about how they tee up living memory.
Yeah, they tee it up a lot.
Yeah, it like now that you're talking about it, I'm like, oh right, okay, now this is like all starting to click into place, because at that point it's like, hey, I need to finish this game for review.
Yeah, even when I figured out from the moment I saw them absorbing souls in Tuliyola, I was like, that's the soul and that's the memory, because we dealt with that in Shadowbringers. We dealt with the issue they had with transporting souls and transporting living beings and everything. So the question was how much of the science works. And in the first part with Grahatia, you learn that somebody, even though their memory of their lover's death was taken from them, they could never fall in love again because it was part of their soul as well. So there was like the intertwining of the ethers and that they still weren't completely separate and everything. So there's just a lot of teeing up to like what you're told about Alexandria and the civilization to what you actually experience with the NPCs, who are all largely okay with being shut off. If you actually go around and talk with them a bunch, they're kind of okay with the idea of what they have right now ending. They're all okay with, like, you very rarely, it's like, oh my God, no, you couldn't do that. No, they're just like, yeah, I mean, it probably won't last forever, but that's fine. I'm glad
that's crazy.
This.
Yeah. Because once you get to living memory, and you look at the golden city. This is the fated golden city that everyone was talking about. But Bakul Jaja wanted me to find this. This was the goal, and it's not wealth. It's not the answers to the world. It's this fake world built on the idea of living forever. And it's such a beautiful sight to see. And it feels like when you first see Amarat, it's a fake city built on the idea that the things that I love most can live forever. And it's like a fucking circus. They play like circus music. There's a Ferris wheel. People are selling balloons. There's cotton candy. Like, everyone lives in the amusement park for the rest of their life. And like, you can't do that. That's not right. And then as you walk through it, I think it's not, like you said, it's not this thing where people are like, no, I want to live forever. It's just like, hey, we're okay with things ending. And then, because in each, they make you do it like 4 or 5 times where you have to turn it off. And the prompt says, unless you're doing New Game Plus where you can turn the lights back on. I didn't know about that. But in the moment, at least for me, where the prompt says like, hey, are you sure that you, like, of course you're going to do it because that's how you progress MSQ, of course. But the fact that they like ask you that question is like, oh, fuck. Like, I'm ending this. Like, I'm going to do this. And then you do it and the lights turn off and it's fucking barren. There's nothing there. You do it the first time, like, oh shit, these are the implications of what I'm doing. But as you go through, as you meet Krau's parents, and you talk to Kafkiwa, and you really understand what she was trying to make you do, and all the different parts of the zone, and it's like, it's walking you through the idea that you need to be comfortable with the end of things. And that's a really hard thing. That's a really fucking hard thing to confront for a fucking game that I want to enjoy and play. But that's what 14 always fucking does to me, man. Ever since Shadowbringers, it's always been this. It's always been this game that has like pulled me aside and tried to ask me so many of the toughest questions that no one in my life has ever been bold enough to ask, or like has earned the right to ask. And then so when Dawntrail does this to you, where especially with Aaronville and Kafkiwa, where he's the one who's like, hey, I need to turn this off. I need to say, like, I need to let this part of my life go, and I need to be the one to do it. It's such a strong message. And man, like, and again, that boat scene with Grahatia, where he basically says, like, damn, there are people in my life that I wanted to be around forever, but if instead of seeing them one more time or meeting them in the afterlife, I would just wanted them to live one more day, and a joyous one at that. That's all I wanted for them. And I really fucking thought about that. Like, I didn't get to say goodbye to my mom. I didn't get to go back home, and I didn't get to have that one more day with her. But when Grahatia said that, I was like, fuck, man, that's all I wanted. I didn't get that. And I think what the game's trying to tell you is, like, you need to embrace those moments if you have them. And you can't get caught up in the idea of the afterlife because it's not real. That shit isn't you can't bet on that being, I don't want to like deride people of faith or whatever, but you need to like live in the now, and you need to embrace what is happening right now and in these moments. And the fact that Grahatia says that is fucking wild. And then he asked the question, like, but if I had all of this, if I had living memory, if I had the power that Sphene had, would I have done the same for the people that I had to let go? I don't know. Let's get this fucking cotton candy though. And so it's just really funny that like 14 is able to ask those deep questions and then move on to like some silly shit. They're able to bounce between those different
things. He goes to deep throating ice cream like 20 minutes later.
And it all works though. It's just like the levity that 14 has and like the serious nature of what the questions that it asks like just works so fucking well. And then honestly, it makes the serious themes hit so much more because it feels human. That's like natural. Like as soon as like these tragic things happen in my life, the first thing I want to do is hit up the group chat and make a bunch of fucking jokes, because that's what you do when you cope with tragic things in your life. You want to make jokes out of it. You want to have fun. You want to laugh. And 14 is able to do that because it doesn't take itself so seriously that you have to dwell on that. I think that's a contrast with 16, where 16 is fucking serious all the time. It doesn't necessarily have that levity to bounce off of its serious themes, which is fine. But the fact that 14 does it makes it stronger. And like that is embodied in all of living memory for me.
Yeah. And it's like it all comes to a head there. But I mean, even before that with Galul Jah is kind of an interesting wrench that they threw into everything even before that point, because he's not really dealing with the themes that the Final Zone are going to deal with. He's still dealing with Zoral Jah's theme of legacy, which is present in living memory, but it's more among the people who are alive. It's more about preservation and strength and Zoral Jah's idea of what needs to happen kind of thing. And it only begins intermingling once Zoral Jah's actually dead. But it does give Galul Jah, it's more like a passing of the torch that gives you even gives you the ability to actually get to the Final Zone. Because don't forget, Galul Jah's the one who technically opens the gate to the Golden City, because he has the authority to do so.
Yeah.
So between him and the earring, both kind of circling back around and becoming that. Yeah. The only question everyone has is, not who is Galul Jah, but how is Galul Jah? Because most people assume cloned or listen, if Virgil can have a kid, Zoral Jah can have a kid.
That's the first thing I thought, because you see Galul Jah in Solution 9 like running away or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, like we know, like, based off of the fact that he's like one of the other tribes of Mamul Jah.
Yeah, he's
the kid
both of them. Yeah, because it's like the reverse blessed, where both of the traits from the Hubagu and the Bonewa are present, even though they only have one head. Yeah, it's the same as Zoral Jah.
Yeah. So it's like, Zoral Jah, who did you smash to make this kid? This motherfucker's why he's hiding a child. Like, I was like, holy shit. This fool's got a secret family. That's crazy. I think it's so funny, but like, that is. I hope they answer that at some point. I mean, they're not going to introduce Baby Galulja for just for this plot point. So I am like keeping my eye on what they're doing with his story, because there's so many questions left over by that. Then the fact that he's a de facto ruler. If I was him, I'd be like, fuck it, I just want to go play on the playground. I want to play Fortnite. I don't want to
Listen,
manage
Zoral
you.
Jaw told him that's up to him. He said you
Yeah.
can spurn this choice or you can embrace it, but I'm giving you the authority. And then he found out. He's like, what? I'm
It's like,
king.
I could have 2 million V-Bucks instead. Like, fuck yeah, I want that. If I was him, I would say yes. But yeah, I'm interested to see what they do with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's it's gonna be fascinating to see. They do leave open some other things. As we are approaching our 2-hour mark, I'm gonna move into the final bit after Living Memory. So we shut off the entirety of Living Memory, specifically shutting down Sphene. And we're given we're given this information beforehand, but it's one last reminder that this Sphene is not the actual Sphene. It's sort of a messed up version of Sphene, which preyed on her desire to protect her people, but it was really the preservation who we learn are the true villains here, who made this Sphene the way she is and programmed her the way that she is. And they say this preservation's not around anymore, that they were lost and that this Sphene essentially is their legacy. But we're also given a scene where the crown that Sphene was wearing on her head lights up and indicates that there's something else that is potentially happening there. The question is if that has something to do with the preservation and if they're going to be dealing with that leading up to point 3, or if that's something to do with potentially one of the warring factions like Lindblom, something that they had done to Alexandria and what the preservation had done, some reprogramming there. So there's a couple of threads deliberately left open about that shard, which will hopefully also explain more about that shard and which shard it is, et cetera, et cetera. That goddamn Amber Lord, all the HSR references with the preservation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Unavoidable with being called the preservation, but you know. Oh, man. But yeah, I'm curious to see where it goes. Because it's made of electrope. There's a lot of story about electrope and its properties and what it can do, and it's essentially what's the joke? Not vibranium. It's there's another like made up material from like comic books that
Not adamantium.
no, it's not azurite. Unobtainium. Yeah, we'll just go with unobtainium. That's not what I was thinking, but we'll just say unobtainium. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the science version of ether. You could make it do whatever you want, and you can take it whatever direction you want. I guess one of the questions I've been asking, maybe this is it's already answered, but like when you go to Living Memory, that is the remnants of that shard, that reflection.
Yeah.
Does that is the only like the existence of that zone of living? Is there anything more left in that shard, or is Living Memory like the last? Is it like the only thing that is left over from that realm, and everything else beyond it is just fucking a wasteland of nothing?
As far as I remember, we shut everything down.
Well, no, what he means is Living Memory is specifically a creation of Alexandria to persevere that calamity. But there's other nations that exist on that shard that are not Living Memory. Like they didn't try to preserve the Lindblom, like the Lindblomians. They weren't going to try to keep them safe. So like, is Lindblom, did Lindblom find a solution? Did they survive? Is there any other nation that was out of Alexandria's reach? Yeah. If we're to believe they're going on Final, which by the way, I couldn't help but notice that Living Memory kind of looks like Final Fantasy IX's map, but that's a totally different story. Not entirely, but like there's bits and pieces of the way that it's put together that very much remind me of Final Fantasy IX's world map. So I definitely can help but notice that. Yeah. But is there something else? Essentially, because what we're led to believe is it's essentially the 13th. And that it wasn't rejoined, but it's completely over. Or it's like the first if it hadn't failed. Or like if the wave of light was never stopped. essentially, which I guess is
Right,
also
yes.
like the 13th.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Like,
just use
if you go-
technology to stop some.
Yeah, if like, I guess I'm wondering, like, if you go like 20,000 yalms some direction, are you going to find anything? Are you going to find like a leftover civilization? And is that something that is going to be explored, or is it just living memory, just like a heaven that was built, and that's the last thing that this realm fucking has all to it? But I don't know.
Yeah, but it's just interesting to think there's essentially a third shard that wasn't rejoined that's just completely fucked.
Yeah.
And you already know, like, I wonder if they told us we should remember the members of the convocation. I wonder if that was because of the key or because we need to figure out which Asian fucked this shard up, because we already know Electrope was like something like Emmett or somebody else did on that shard to set up a rejoining that now there's no rejoining to be had. So,
Man, yeah, it's I think though the way that Dawntrail kind of incorporates the past in some really subtle ways, or in ways that they don't have to outright say, is kind of one of the strong points, I think, because the implications of everything that's happened before are very much apparent when you like dig down deep into it. And like even the patch quests, because the Endwalker patch quests, I just didn't really understand what they were trying to do with it, other than like, hey, we need to buy time before we get to the next expansion. Let's just do Final Fantasy IV. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm here for it. I'll play that content. Hell yeah. But I guess one thing that I think about is that they spent so much time trying to build the idea of portals to the other realms without using the Crystal Tower. Like Y'shtola worked so hard to like build, or like everyone else worked so hard to build this portal into the void so we can save Azhdaya. And like, okay, cool, we're gonna do that. And then the fact that Dawntrail like comes back around on, like, now we're talking about, we are making good on the idea that we are trying to work to build portals to all the other shards. I think it makes the patch quest a little bit more like, oh fuck, like y'all were thinking steps ahead. And of course we couldn't have known that because we weren't making a Dawntrail. So I'm like, all right, y'all are playing chess out here. I respect that, and that is okay. They are steps ahead, and I think they're working towards something that is going to be even bigger. And again, like the idea of Dawntrail, the start of a new era, and introducing you to this entirely different culture, region, and this idea of exploring other shards. Man, that is, I think they have set themselves up to like do whatever they want. If they have to ditch certain ideas and go a different direction, they can do that. Mm-hmm. If they want to like double down on a certain idea from Dawntrail, they can do that. It's like they had opened themselves up to almost anything for the next 10 years. And that was really important for them to do, that I wanted to see them prove that they can do. And then, yeah, I'm so excited about the future of 14.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem like it's going in any particular direction. Like you said, it's more so they're opening up avenues by making shard travel, making sure there's more than one method that's available. We found one in the Endwalker patch quest. We found one here with the gate, as well as the Holy Grail of Azim, which is interesting because you had to know Emmett. Emmett knew about the Golden City. He knew about this already. He tells us about it.
Yeah. And three other places we should go to.
Yeah. So the fact that he knew about it's pretty interesting, because that means he knew that there was a shard that was like really fucked up, that like he was like, all right, hold on. Come on. You know, we gotta set this one up real quick. And he still considered the first a more important thing that had to be done. But yeah, I don't know. It's really interesting to see how many different doors they open. I mean, even this opening up the South Sea Isles is, to be clear, if anyone's forgetting, Alo Alo, the variant dungeon, is where the South Sea Isles are. Like, that is all. We even fight a giant fucking Lalafell, like, in Alo Alo. So, yeah. Just saying, like, the Malala thing is, like, it's not brand new, but it's like, there's a lot of avenues open. It's just a question of which one is really going to be kind of the driving force. Because they gave us a potential existence-ending threat here still with Dawntrail, with a robot that can merge dimensions together in order to endlessly consume ether until everything is eternal.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. Like that, like, is that going to be the constant threat? Like the threat of, you know, shard ending scenarios, because we have this travel. We'll will essentially have traveled to other shards. So that's going to be the constant threat, I think, is like, they're going to take out every shard. They're going to be able to take out every shard. And that's the only avenue I can think of that's like the big bad for the next arc, I guess we're going down.
Yeah. Yeah, chat says if Sphene was left completely alone, essentially, it would have been a Medion. It would have been a little, because Medion was going to end all life. And the only reason why anything that Medion did takes physical form is because we're there with Dynamis.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally the only otherwise it's all like it's just like a void of nothing at the edge of the universe.
Right.
Here it would have been essentially all ether on all shards would have been consumed, and then it still wouldn't have been able to sustain living memory forever, and then it would have died anyway.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
So it was kind of an inevitable same endpoint. Aloha, be quiet. So he's always like this. So there's a whole lot. There's just a lot to unpack, especially in that last half. And while it's a little too crammed into that back half, whereas the first half is all that exposition and character building, I think that's why I say it's just good. At the end of, I said earlier in the show, at the end of it all, good. Wasn't amazing, wasn't bad. I just had a good time the whole time.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And like, even just this conversation we've had between us really puts into perspective how fucking different the two halves of this game are.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about culture and exploration and Wook Lamont, really like learning what it takes to be Dawn Servant, her relationship with her brothers. And then we're talking about fucking calamities, realm travel, and all this other shit. But even though they do feel like two very distinct halves, it's still, as I say in my review, like, there's enough connective tissue for this to make sense and feel like once Wook Lamont and Kona become Dawn Servant, this is the next logical step, it feels like. And again, I'm excited to see how they explore this more, because there is so much more that needs to be explored. But the fact that this is what Dawntrail ended up being surprised me. And I was like, oh shit, okay, like, I am again excited for the future of 14. After Endwalker's like, I don't know what the future holds for 14. We'll see what they can do. I don't know. But now Dawntrail's like, hey, I cannot wait for the next patch. I cannot wait for the teasers for the next expansion. So I think that just that to me makes Dawntrail an accomplishment, I think. And we've been playing this game for a long ass time. It's really hard to be surprised by it. And yet Dawntrail still hit me with a lot of surprises. So, yeah, and in that regard, I'm just like really happy with it.
Sly, any closing thoughts, particularly on anything we touched upon?
No, I'm just honestly, I'm optimistic in terms of where we're going from here. In the beginning, I was kind of meh about Dawntrail. I'm like, yeah, this is after our 10-year arc of dealing with the big bads in the Asians and then Zodiark, and now what are we doing? We're having a quote unquote summer vacation. How deep is this gonna get? And it got real fucking deep. So yeah, I'm impressed that they managed to kind of get me back to their side and kind of get me excited for the future in Final Fantasy 14. So I am looking forward to it. Hi.
Now, I do want to throw one last thing in here. This is not based on any particular event. Well, actually, no, I guess it is. So the Stray Burrow Deadwalk is the dungeon, as we call it, the circus dungeon.
Yeah.
And obviously, we have a quick scene of us traveling through the Ethereal Sea to get through to that dungeon. And so obviously we're still not quite out of the way with whole shard travel. In fact, it's still very, very recent, the clown dimension. We're going someplace in a few months. We're going to Vanadil.
Oh, right.
I have Googled this just to be sure. The 11th shard is still fully intact as far as we know. So
that is so fucking lazy. Stop. No.
Oh, come on.
That's the show. That's the fucking show. First off, I mean, I'm semi looking forward to it, save one person, but That is so fucking. Oh my god.
I dig it. Fuck it.
Now, of course, the question then becomes: I want to be very clear. I don't think Vana'diel, as it is in 11, is the 11th shard. But I've, of course, floated the idea before of Echoes of Vana'diel either referencing the fact that it's a past civilization, Echoes, or another shard, which also makes sense with 11th story. Do you think that's where we're taking what we learned in Living Memory? Where we take the Golden Gate, are we going to the 11th shard for Vana'diel, or are they going to take? Do you think they're going to take a different approach?
It's hard to say because it depends on how much stock they put into Alliance raid stories, and we've seen them kind of obviously with Realm Reborn, Crystal Tower. That raid series it's required content now because it's so important to Shadowbringers, right? And you have Void Arc. And then you have the 12, the Rabanastra stuff, and that became the Shadowbringers extra content with what's the region? I'm forgetting. I've spent so many hours in that place. Yeah, in Dalmasca. So okay, we've seen Alliance raids feed into other things. The Nier stuff was contained, obviously, in its own thing. And then the Mists of the Realm was just like, let's revisit our past to just put a cap on it. If they want to do something bold with their Alliance raid story, this would be an opportune time to do it. If they were going to incorporate an entirely different shard with it, and I mean they did that with Cloud of Darkness and things like that, which ended up coming back, of course. But I would love to see them use the Alliance raid in a more bold way, in a more direct way, rather than just like side content that you can enjoy if you want. But yeah, and like to merge in 11 is like. It'd be cool as fuck. It's like, hey, the other MMO. We didn't forget that there's another MMO. We're gonna put it in our shit too. So, I don't know to what degree they're going to like lean on that stuff, but I hope that they would lean harder into incorporating that into like the way we experience the main game.
Yeah, it's just a question that actually has to be asked now.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
Before it was like, oh yeah, maybe it's one of the shards. Like I think it was a logical thought for a lot of people that maybe it was one of the other shards, especially because we knew the 11th shard again was one of the ones still around. The 9th also one still around, hence why, the wonder is if the Living Memory was from there. I think all fair because it's not stated, and we know they like to be a little on the nose about certain things.
Yeah.
Something's subtle, something's on the nose. So it's just a matter of which is which.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a fair question to ask whether or not you think that. I kind of hope they go a more interesting route than it just being the 11th shard. I do hope they don't. I feel like it's kind of like Sly, like little lazy, little lazy to just do that when I think
a little bit lazy.
A lot more. But I'm still. I mean, for those who don't know, Altana, who is the Hydaelyn of Final Fantasy XI. Is also known as the Dawn Maiden. So, again, it's still kind of on the nose. So if they're going to be on the nose, they're going to be on the nose about it. So, just saying. So there's a lot that could happen with that one. But yeah, I just wanted to pose that one last question about that. Obviously, the Arcadian we already know is inside Solution 9. So that other last little scene with the Lalafell with the mustache.
Fucking so unserious.
I like how everyone's like, of course it's a Lalafell. Why wouldn't it be? Even in Solution 9, they're doing that.
Oh.
Looking forward to it. Yeah, and then Cosmic Exploration will set up space.
Ooh,
which hopefully explains the meteorite in Yaktel a little bit. So
maybe.
All of the regions. I also want to see, they mention them briefly, but the blue mages of the New World, they're certainly not present. They mention them once.
Yeah,
when
they are. They absolutely
there's not,
are.
They are, but there's not much. There's not a whole lot.
One of them shows up majorly in Mrhappy, actually.
Oh.
Fish.
The fish.
Fish.
Okay, that's like one. The other mention is when you're riding the Roniques through. They briefly make mention.
Mm-hmm.
A Beastmaster, yeah.
No, they make mention of the Blue Mage tribe.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a throwaway line from Aaronville. He's just like, yeah, that's just like them. And it's like, got anything else to say, bro? I'm dying over here. We've known about them for years now. What can you throw me something else?
Yeah.
Some Wallachie lore, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dawntrail's crazy.
It's inside quest
Yeah.
jail. Yeah.
Oof.
Maybe we'll get Wallachie quests at some point. Just give us straight up Wallachie. Oh, I mean, Blue Mage is going to go to 90, but that's not Dawntrail, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe when they go to 100 eventually, we'll finally get some more involved Wallachie stuff, but that's not going to be till 8.x. So, yay.
Yeah. I will say, last thing I'll say is Pictomancer, one of my favorite jobs. Viper, not so much.
Sorry.
Wow.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm not crazy about
Yeah.
Viper. And Viper's getting changed soon anyway. So
Yeah, there are gonna be some changes, but Pictomancer off the bat, I love Pictomancer. That shit is so fun.
yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, another lore tidbit I loved. And I'm glad that they seem to specifically. It's very interesting to think that all the references to the first are in Texas. Because we have the greatest serpent of.
Yes, that's the other
my
expert
God.
dungeon.
Yeah, the other expert dungeon. Yeah, we have the return of Scree. Like all of like there's a lot of references
Yeah.
to the first, specifically in Northern Tyrol.
Was the first Texas all along?
Yeah.
The first Texas.
To be fair, it's
Oh.
kind of like the Wild Wild West by the time we got there.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my god. Yeah, so much more to dig into at Dawntrail, man. It's an exciting time, I think. So I'm just happy that like
No, I'm happy.
so many doors are open for 14 at this point.
Fuck.
To be fair, I've had a lot of times to say that so far at this show, Sly, and I really held out, you know?
Yeah.
The corn servant, yeah. Scree-haw! I saw La Hee Haw as well was another one that I saw.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I like that. Oh, that's fucking hilarious. Damn.
We've gotten a lot of great jokes about Shelani in Texas. There's been so many good references. It's like, of course, there's a giant fucking rattlesnake in Texas.
I need more of it. Give me more, please.
I can't wait to take Hildebrand there.
Oh yeah, everyone's right off the bat is like, oh, Hildebrand's going here for sure. There's no way they don't.
I hope Hildebrand meets Wookavu. That's like a big wish. I really need the Hildebrand Wookavu. Like,
I need that dynamic.
I need that dynamic. I really need that dynamic to exist.
Yeah.
And we have the biggest bridge of them all. So if Gilgamesh doesn't show up, I'll be insulted.
Mm-hmm. There's
Yeah.
got to be a duty on that bridge for sure.
I want to see Hildy in a cowboy outfit.
Oh,
In a duel. Oh, he needs to do it. He needs to duel someone in the middle of town.
they already got that. That
Yeah.
content is made. You know that content's already made.
It's rare that I look at an entire expansion and go, "Ah, yeah, Hildebrand's got to fuck around with
Yep.
something in here," and I'm like, "Nope, he's got to go to Texas. He's absolutely got to go to Texas without a shadow of a doubt."
Yep.
All right. With that, I think we can finally start winding down. I feel like we had a pretty fun discussion about all of the story-related elements, character elements, ups, downs for Dawntrail, you know. So, with that, we're going to start signing off. Thank you again for joining. I didn't know whether to call you by Mike or Michael or your actual handle. So I went with your actual name with everything
Yes.
and branding. So I hope that was fine.
Yes, that works.
Other than the fact that your Twitter isn't. Well, no, your Twitter is. It's
Michael P. Higham.
Yeah, that one I had. Yeah, there was. I almost branded the other one. That's what I remember.
Yeah, I'm a professional journalist out here, so I go by my full name. No, I've always said that I always have people call me Michael unless they are like physically bigger than me. Like I used to work at a sporting goods store with a lot of like ex-varsity football players. They call me Mike. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm Mike. I'm 1000% Mike to you. I ain't gonna tell you otherwise. But everyone else calls me Michael, so I just usually go by Michael. But hey, you can call me whatever you want. You can call me whatever you want.
I just know that dilemma because
You're a Michael also, so
Yeah.
you know. You don't go by Mike.
you also get funny when people spell it EAL instead of AEL. So you're just like, I'm not Mikael or Mickey, like I'm not Mikiel, Michael.
Yeah, they run my credit score. I'm like, oh fuck, you don't have a credit score. I'm like, come on,
Change the
spell my
vowels,
name
man.
right, please. Yeah. Fuck, are we doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, and Sly. There you go. It's like Ed, and Eddie.
Sure. I'll take it.
Well, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show for the first time. It's good to have you on. Thank you, Sly, for
thank you so much
extending the invite and doing the heavy lifting that I always forget to do.
No problem.
So why don't you, just like your introduction, give everyone your sign off and everything, whatever you want to tell them. The floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you. You can find me and all of my bullshit at Michael P. Higham on Twitter or on Instagram at Higham Michael. You check out my review on IGN.com. A video review should be up soon also for Dawntrail on IGN's various channels. But yeah, that's just what I do. You know what I'm saying? So thank you so much for having me, man. Like, real talk. Like, I mean, obviously, when I was a wee lad playing Final Fantasy XIV for the first time during the patch 4.x series, it was either Ms. Tech or it was Mr. Happy who guided me through those dungeons and trials. So
You're only
it's
allowed
really
to like
fucking...
one of us, though. According to the internet, you had to pick. Like, you weren't allowed. Remember, everyone said you have to like one or the other. And don't forget that we hate each other.
Oh my god.
Like,
Okay, so one of y'all...
That's the internet.
One of y'all got me through all those dungeons and trials, and when I was a wee lad, so
it was the Miz. It was the Miz. We all know it was the Miz.
But honestly, it's really fucking cool, man. Especially like FanFest last year when I got to like chill with Frosty, Brian Ricardo. I got to meet Sly finally too, and all of my other friends in games media who play 14. It's just I'm just really thankful to be here. This is really cool to like finally link up with you, Mr. Happy, and also like Slide, like chop it up. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. This was legitimately fun as hell. Again, thank you.
Thank you for taking your time on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
So. All right, Sly. Now we have to, I guess, sign out too.
Yeah. I guess. Like, who the fuck am I? You can find me on Twitch, Sly, aka Gray Fox, on Twitter, Sly, aka Gray Fox. What am I doing? A bunch of Dawntrail. Probably gonna start working on the other roles that I'm getting near done with crafting. But big old but. You might need some armor on the 30th. Hell, you might want to level crafters, but you don't want to really level them, so you might need Leave kit. Well, that's what I'm here for. Come on down to Sly's 24-hour drive-through Polygon Auto Parts 8th Logical Adult Get Bait and Tackle Discount Cigarette Outlet, where we have unheard of prices for all of your needs. So, if you need a lev kit, you need some armor on Savage Day, hit your boy up. I'll have a sign-up sheet for armor orders on Monday. Ooh. So, be on the lookout on Twitter. And yeah.
Nice. Get them eye levels, baby.
Mike?
Which one? No, I'm not doing that.
Oh my god.
Also been waiting for that all show, but you don't ever call me by my name. So I was surprised to hear you say it just now. It was on your mind. Yeah, Mr. Happy 1227 everywhere. I'm done. Anyway. Very exciting, right? Listen, they're here. What did they need to know? Like, they're here already, right? Like, that's the advantage. I host it, and then they all like.
These are your people.
No, there's not. No, they're ours. But like, they already found me to have found this. So it's like, I'm useless at this. I've served my purpose. I've completed my tasks. No, I've just been cranking out Dawntrail content. My video today is, so you finished Dawntrail. Now what? Yeah. Just telling people what to do at 100. So that was today's, my various job thoughts. You know, I've leveled now 6 jobs, I believe. But I'm waiting till Tuesday. I got normal mode guides and then predictions for Savage mechanics and all that. So yeah, it's going to be a fun rest of the month with plenty of Dawntrail to take up. Oh, and I get to do a free video after this on the fact that we now have a date on the Visa Fix of July 23rd. Oh. So still quite a ways away, but, you know, another 11 days at this point. Does it, you know? And that's if it works, because who knows if the fix will work, you know. Good luck, everyone who's using Visa. Hoping the best for you. Man. Oh, man. All right, so we're gonna go into a short post show. We just leave the mic on and talk for a few more minutes before heading our separate ways. So just letting you know since it's your first show. But we will see you all next week, where we'll be just reviewing the Arcadian. Have a guest or two on for that. We'll be going over the story for that. We'll be going over the fights, any predictions we may have, and just a fun little quick discussion on that. So hopefully you're all looking forward to it. But with that, we'll see you next week. And until then, bye.
Peace.
Take care.